Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly in-depth ag forecast brought to you by AgSouth Farm Credit. I'm going to start off by just letting you know today that we've got a lot we're going to cover. In addition to covering the recent severe weather event, plus a look at what precipitation has looked like over the last few weeks, we're going to cover where this active end of March is going to take us, our cooler risks in the forecast, and then we're going to stretch us out into an April analog forecast, and I'm going to discuss all of the long-range models and what I think could be 3 important analog years to the forecast at the very end of this video. Oh, and I have some stuff on South America. So sit back. If you want to, scroll around, find your spot in the video you want to watch, but there's a lot of stuff coming your way today. First thing I want to cover, though, is this storm system that ripped through parts of the central United States, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-South yesterday. And this morning, early this morning, some of the storms were coming toward the Blue Ridge Mountains, but really hitting more of Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi and Louisiana pretty hard. These storms had quite a history. As of early this morning here on Friday, almost 670 reports of severe weather, and a lot of this came in the way of hail. Now, there was, of course, some dangerous tornadoes that were in this system in parts of the Ohio River Valley, especially. And I'm just now this morning learning of some fatalities from these storms. But this was a pretty rough go of it. Some of that hail, though, was quite large. I can show you the National Weather Service's Twitter feed from St. Louis, just giving you a glimpse at some of this hail and just to let you know what happened from the storm system. All of the color that you see in this map represents where radar observed hail. And if we just kind of zoom in here, there's a huge section of the Mid-South and Midwest getting back over here toward the Red River Valley that saw some pretty nasty, severe weather here in the last 24 hours. Speaking of the last 24 hours, this was through about 5 a.m. this morning, looking at nearly 500,000 cloud-to-ground lightning strikes out of this system. And as we kind of just see where the storms are right now, here they are coming over the Blue Ridge Mountains into this part of North and South Carolina. But the bigger storms are here, and these are the ones that still have the severe thunderstorm watch on them. Total rainfall out of this, locally very heavy, and this is critically important to this area of the country, hitting a spot that desperately needed to get a lot of moisture. We're going to make a story out of that in a few moments. But just to let you know a couple of other areas around the country, the Front Range of the Rockies just picked up 4 feet of snow in places. And what this has done is this has put the upper Colorado Basin at 100% of normal snowpack. Thinking about where that moisture is, though, throughout the country, I do want you to see this, though. There's a large hole in the middle part of the United States that has missed out on a lot of this precipitation. And that's what this map shows over the last 30 days. It's a percent of normal precipitation map. You can even see it again if I show you the February 1st through March 14th precipitation ranks. Big section of the Midwest, upper Midwest, Western Corn Belt. And even though the rains just went through this area, we're still quite dry compared to average. Part of the Cotton Belt over here in Texas still been very dry. And if you notice, North Carolina is still our holdout for some areas that have missed out on some recent precipitation. That brings me to an update on the soil moisture maps. Now this goes down to 100 centimeters or 40 inches. We're looking at a percentile, not a percent. But notice there's a large hole right in the Corn Belt where things have been missing, and we have some major concerns about that area. Now, the pattern is going to evolve in a way that at the second half of March could really light that region up. And I'm going to make a case for that because we compete. I've said this in many videos. The corn and beans that are grown here compete directly against what's grown in the Midwest. Now, you have more variety of crop here, of course, than we have, but we need to talk about that. And then what I really want to stress to you all is that my level of concern about your summer drought here, not here, is increasing. And I want to make a case for that and let you know what I have as of March 15th. Now, I want to be very clear about something before I take another step in this video. The enthusiasm in my voice or excitement, I don't want that to be misinterpreted. Why I get excited about this is, well, first of all, I'm a big nerd and I like doing this. But the second reason is when I start to see a few things adding up, it's exciting for me to do that just as my profession. But please don't take my tone and maybe misinterpret it or allow it to create anxiety. I just want to address that right away. Okay, since we're talking about this dryness, I do want to let you know that the Mississippi River, while today it's about 12 feet above low stage, some of that recent rain is going to keep it here. Unless we see some major changes in the northern part of the Mississippi, then the Mississippi Basin, then we're going to be talking about a lack of spring flooding threat. But I'll show you if there's any changes coming. So that brings us to the latest drought monitor. And the new drought monitor did shrink in North Carolina, that area that had been abnormally dry. We got that system, remember we talked about it last week, that started here and rolled right up the coast, and that was a great kind of knockout punch for that abnormally dry area. But we can't ignore that the longer-term moisture content in North Carolina has been compromised this winter. But spring can undo a lot of those issues, which we need to see if that's going to take place. Okay, as it stands today, this is through early this morning on Friday where our all hazards weather map kind of shows the risks. So we still have the severe storms to the south. We have some dense fog this morning here in South Carolina, but these storms are kind of rolling through relatively quickly here. All right, severe weather risk today highlighted in this SPC map. You can see some of these storms are going to be stronger as they roll through parts of Georgia and South Carolina and AgSouth territory. But the pattern is this. We've now cut off a low here. So the flow is much more meridional or north-south in the western United States. And you say, well, what does that mean? That means that this trough of low pressure is going to be able to dive into this area later this weekend, delivering some colder air such that we get a frost line pretty far to the south by next Tuesday. And I'm going to show you what those temperatures look like because they're going to be critical to South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia weather going forward. It won't be until midweek next week that this low comes out and starts to move over toward us, giving us some rain late next week. But in the meantime, we still have some other chances for getting some moisture into place. But what I'm telling you is, right now we're quite warm. Compared to yesterday, we've even warmed up 10 to 15 degrees. But there are a couple of shots at cold air, the big one coming early next week. They're going to drop these temperatures off in a big way. So let's have a look at the models on Precip first, and we'll get back into that temperature discussion. So through the morning here on Friday, we watch the storms roll through, even get a little bit of moisture into Virginia and North Carolina out of this. And by tonight, we're going to be talking about a chance for more of those storms coming through parts of Georgia and South Carolina. So why these scattered storms rolling through as this system exits by Saturday? Now here's that risk of colder air I was telling you about. Right now it's producing snow in Ontario and the Great Lakes, and it's got a front that sneaks through right here. And throughout the day on Sunday, we might get a little bit of rain. See it coming out of Mississippi into Alabama. Sunday, midday, coming through Georgia, North and South Carolina. But that front's going to try to come through and clear everything out after this for most of, the rest of the end of the weekend into early next week. And we're going to talk about what the temperatures are going to do in a second. But I need to show you the pattern. You see, right now, this is the omega blocking pattern, and this is the source of the cold air here on Friday getting into Saturday. And then you see it diving right there. See that? That's by Monday. Now, after that clears east, there it goes. Next Wednesday, keep an eye on this little trough right here. You see, that's the one that's today a part of the blocking pattern over Arizona. It then sneaks out into Texas, slides through Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and by late next week hits us and delivers some rain. Now after this, watch, here's the 23rd of March. Ridge moves into Alaska, opening up the western United States for a deep trough of low pressure. And what I see when this pattern looks like this is that ridge up the east, way out here, that's going to set things up to be very, very volatile from like the 23rd through the 28th or 29th. It's not just in the European. It's in the GFS, and it's also in the new European Artificial Intelligence forecast model. There it is. Look at the size of that trough just sweeping through there at that time. So you need to know that I think the end of this month has a March lion, not a March lamb. So we need to go out there and see what it looks like. Let's compare the GFS to the European first and play this forward. So there's the rain I talked about through early Saturday morning, and a little push that comes through on Sunday. See it? Right there. So that's Sunday to Monday. That's all a part of the same system. Then the cold air arrives, high pressure Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not a whole lot. But once we get into that Friday time frame, right here, this is the moisture that came out of Arizona, finally making its way across, and it delivers some moisture to us, some rain. So when does it get here? Possibly Friday into Saturday, and that rolls up the coast. Now, it's in both models. But take a look at what happens after the 24th to the 25th. This is when the pattern really begins to crank on some big system in the midsection of the country. And that's when I think things are going to really kick off in a huge way. for the whole country. I want to give you more information on that in a second. First, let's compare models. There's the next 7 days from the European. So most of the precip skirts right through here, correct? We just saw that in the model. So we're a little bit drier farther to the north. Drier, not dry, but drier. The GFS has something similar. But both models fill this in. Look, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. Look at that. We need to be aware of what this next system could do. And I think for us, it's going to be a 25th, 26th, 27th deal. Let's keep an eye on that. Snow, by the way, I know we're not usually talking about snow this time of year, but take a look at what the models are attempting to do here. And the GFS is trying to do that. Now, what's the significance? This is an area that's way behind. They've had less than 20% of normal snow here in parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin this year. And the atmosphere is trying to make up for all that lost time before we even get into April. And I need you to know this because if we get snow in this area, that delivers moisture to an area that's in drought that grows crops you compete with. Now, certainly not cotton and peanuts and the other stuff you grow down here, but the corn and beans, yes. Watch that carefully. All right, is there a good chance of it? Yeah, there's about a 50 to 60% chance of 6 inches of snow in this area. And the Climate Prediction Center is even watching it carefully as well. So I'm just putting that bug in your ear to know about some other places in the country that are changing. Now, for most of the next week, our driest spot is in North Carolina and Virginia. This is the chance of staying under a ½ inch. But as we play this out, you'll see that quickly erode away. And over the next 2 weeks, let's just check it out there for 2 weeks, and I'm going to jump this up to 1 inch. That's the probability of getting 1 inch in the next 2 weeks, and here's 2 inches. So I'm seeing that this pattern is very wet in the lower Mississippi River Valley into the southeast Georgia and South Carolina. So you've got a lot of moisture coming, and remember, a lot of this is coming in, not in the next 2 systems, the ones I just detailed for you, but the bigger one that starts out there around the 23rd through the 29th. And the longer range models are seeing it as well. The day 8 through 14 and all of the models went wetter for AgSouth. Okay, how long does that last? And what do the temperatures do? Well, here's the risk of frost in the next 7 days. When is it that this cold air comes in? Let's go have a look at it. I'll start you off with high temperatures first, and we'll look at the lows. So today, very mild. Getting into Saturday, again mild. Even Sunday, still quite mild. When do we start to break off colder? Monday, Tuesday. That's the time frame we're going to watch. Monday, Tuesday, right there. By next Wednesday and Thursday, we moderate a bit. But on the minimum side of this, let's go look at those minimum temperatures. Ready? Here's today's min temperatures. Saturday, Sunday. Watch this. There's Monday, Tuesday. That is where I currently have the frost line. Tuesday morning. We have to watch that very carefully. By Wednesday, a little bit of moderation, and by next Thursday, we've gone back above those freezing numbers for most of AgSouth territory, but we need to keep an eye on next Tuesday right here. Okay? Broader picture, though. Day 5 through 10, still cooler. Day 10 through 15, moderation. The cold air setting up here, though, is what I'm expecting the end of the month to give us that storm track that rolls right in through this area. Now, you notice that we might finish March with more cooler weather than warmer weather. Some of the longer range models have been finally honing in on that a bit, that maybe even the start of April starts off cooler with this as well. Now, please don't be alarmed when you see this go, holy cow, that's dark blue. No. It's only 4 degrees cooler, okay? So it's not like it's brutally cold for a long time. And we start to see some moderation. But the latest CFSV2 model does finally come into agreement better with the European, which suggests that into the first week of April, we just tend to hang on to our cooler risk. Okay? Now, I'm not settled on that for the Southeast, but I want to let you know that that's what we're seeing. Now, what is all this? This is all my long range. Let's have a good talk about this. So much of the long range forecast is going to depend on the evolution of 3 areas. The water temperatures here in the North Pacific, El Niño and its collapse to neutral and possibly La Niña, and these ocean temps here where our hurricane season is born. NOAA just released its newest update on the probability of having an El Niño or a La Niña or neutral. And by spring, it's got highest probability of being neutral. Then as you go into summer and into fall, highest probability up to an 85% chance of having an El Nino, or excuse me, a La Nina form. Now, don't misinterpret this graphic. It says nothing about the strength. It only says the chance of one phase or the other. But we're going to go ahead and look at that strength in another way. First of all, what do I know about April? Well, I have a long history of El Nino events. They're all here, these peaks. Every valley is a La Nina. So if we use all the times where we had an El Nino that then dropped off in a neutral or La Nina, what we ended up getting out of it was this. That's all the years used together. We tended to start off April cool and finish mild. Okay, that's what tended to happen. Started off cool, finish mild. But there was no indication of a slowdown in the moisture when you look at these historic years. The worry isn't April. It isn't May. It's summer. My worry is about summer in this area, and I want to build a case for you as to why I'm concerned on March 15th today about summer in AgSouth territory. Now, the models are not advertising it. They just aren't yet. But I want to tell you why I'm worried about it. Now, understand something here. It's March 15th. We still have so many things that are going to change between now and when summer arrives. So this is just what I know as of today. Okay, the first suite of models we're going to look at comes from the CFS V2. That's a model run in North America. CFS, Climate Forecasting System version 2. Now you notice I've labeled it. April, May, June, July, August, and then July, August, September, October, November. Now you note that early, this model is not bringing in the risk of drought. It's trying to let it start in the western and southern plains and maybe get to us by fall. But by fall, we're expecting the hurricane season to be pretty active given how warm the ocean temperatures are, so this is a huge wild card. That model's not calling for drought for you to develop. Neither are these. This is the European model on the left and the National Multi-Model Ensemble on the right. Now remember, multi-model in this case means it's got 8 different models that are all averaged together to give you this. And one of those models, by the way, is this one. Okay, so what does it do? Well, this is April, May, June. In fact, I can just let it play. May, June, July, August, July, August, September. Notice that in neither of these models, do we just see like what we have over here in the Four Corner States or in the Southern Plains or in the Midwest, and that's where their models are predicting the drought. Now, how good are these models? Well, last year they were terrible. And sometimes they don't exhibit good skill. So I need to add another dimension to this, okay? And the dimension I want to add is this. Now what I did was I took all of those years that had an El Nino at Christmas, that faded in spring, and was gone by summer and fall. And I put them all together. We just did this for April. Let's now do it for June through August. We tended to be hotter. When you put them all together, we tended to be hotter. And this is where the trick is. In some of these years, drought developed here. In some of these years, drought developed here. And in a few of these years, which I'm going to highlight for you, drought developed there. And what I want to know is, which of these 3 scenarios is most likely to happen? Now, we currently sit here with our ocean temperatures, and we expect our drought, should it develop, to be broken by an active hurricane season. And that is a scary thought to have, right? That is the worst of both of those worlds coming together. Drought in summer, broken by a hurricane season. That's what my current thinking is right now, and I want to make a case for this. On March 13th, 2 days ago, this is our latest ocean temperature outlook. One of the years that I've been asked a lot about is 2010. Now, there's some folks drawing some parallels between March of 2010 and March of 2024. So here's 2010, there's 2024. I can see some similarities. There was a decaying El Nino, some warm water in the North Atlantic, but certainly some cold water here that wasn't there. That's not there this year. And this was colder. But 2010 was Christmas El Nino that epically collapsed. And some of the models are doing that. So it looked like this by the time I got to July. All of that warmed up, but this got much colder, meaning La Nina, and very cold here. And I want to show you what happened. When we look at the temperature ranks of 2010, the west was very cold, and the southeast was record hot. A lot of this was overnight heat. But in addition to that, I want to show you why. For most of summer, a large ridge parked over Nashville, and the flow came around it just like this. That's what kept all your heat in. And because of that, we saw very wet conditions that were in the Midwest and upper Midwest. Look at that. That's June. All of that rainfall came into that area and left us very, very dry down here. So by the time we got into June, July, and August, huge storms hit the Corn Belt because of the big ridge that sat over the southeast, making things quite dry. Now you're going, wait a minute, I see better. Well, we did have storms in there, but we ran the risk of developing drier and drier conditions. So I'm concerned about 2010 as an analog year. Is it the strongest analog? No, it is not. I think the strongest analog to 2024 might be 2016. Here's 24, there's 16. Now 16 is similar here and in the Atlantic, but not in the North Pacific. And that needs to be discussed because in 16, by March, we were pretty wet across a big section of the country, and that lasted into April and May. But the problem was June, July, and August got drier and drier and drier. Now that doesn't look too dry, but this is a 9-month running average. What ended up happening was that as El Niño faded and La Niña tried to work its way in, very warm water built in here. Warm water stayed there, but we got very hot and very dry under the exact same thing. A big southeastern ridge. So all along the periphery, storms ran the periphery of that ridge, hitting the Corn Belt, hitting the Mid-South, hitting Texas, but we baked. And do you remember 2016 in Gatlinburg? That was when we had that massive fire. So these are 2 years, although I'm banking more on 16 than I am on 10 as a good analog year. That's showing potential risk. What happened, again? Big ridge sat there. So it got hot and it got dry. Now, 88 is the other year I've been getting asked a lot about. I don't see a lot of similarities in 88 because by July of 88, powerful La Niña, cold here, cold there, and the Atlantic shut itself down. So we ended up getting just no flow across the whole country and extremely dry conditions. Why? Because the jet stream came in, ripped off to the north, left a huge ridge of high pressure here, and the flow just went around it, and we were all done. I don't think 88's a strong analog. I don't, but I got asked a ton of questions about it. So here is where we make our conclusion. While I'm concerned that we're going to get a repeat of 16 or something like it, I need you to know that the models don't agree with me. Remember when we played this? They try to keep you stormy and wet all summer long. I just have to tell you what I'm analyzing and let you know that history isn't following the model forecasts right now as closely as we would want. So what does that mean? What do you do with this? I mean, to be honest, nothing. We have to watch it continually, and we still have to get through the rest of March and into April. Once we get past the spring barrier in the forecasting, we'll have a better idea as to the risk of developing that ridge. But you need to know there's major competition when you compare an analog forecast to a dynamical forecast. All right. I don't know what else to tell you other than that, okay? So where do I finish? Well, let's go quickly to South America. We're on that safrinha crop, which has got cotton and corn in it. It's just been planted quite dry in parts of Mato Grosso and Mato Grosso do Sul over the last couple of months, but certainly they're getting warmer and drier as we go forward. Wet into southern Brazil, wet into parts of Argentina, save Buenos Aires, but wetter in this area, but drier here. And the longer range forecast continues to put potential stress on the safrinha crop in Brazil's north, central, and center west growing area, which just means something we have got to watch going forward. What's the crop there? It's a lot of corn and it's a lot of cotton at this point. So let's watch it carefully and just see how that story evolves going forward. So thanks for your extra time today. I hope this was insightful and gave you something to think about. But with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks.